What's up guys, welcome to this review of The Mandalorian Season 3. This time around, Grogu and Din Djarin are back in the lead roles, sort of. This time teaming with Bo-Katan to try and resurrect Mandalore and bring all the Mandalorians they know together to do so. Of course, there are some problems along the way, like the New Republic trying to resurrect itself and Moff Gideon possibly being out on the loose again. What did I think of this season of The Mandalorian? I thought this season was disappointing. Overall, it's okay. It's definitely not bad. There are some really good episodes here, and I don't think there are any episodes that are flat out bad or awful or anything like that. It is okay on average throughout its run. The problem with this season is that it doesn't always feel focused. It doesn't always seem like there's a clear, definitive goal that the characters are reaching for. It starts off and it becomes clear, right, they're going to go back to Mandalore because he wants to reclaim his honor or position in the tribe and stuff. Right, a good start. But then he goes on a bunch of little adventures and they're fun, they're entertaining, and sometimes they're insightful. But they don't always feel relevant to his overall goal. It feels like they're stretching things out, dragging things out almost. And then the final two episodes come about, and that's when it's like, right, now we're working towards the goal again. It's very reminiscent to the first season of The Mandalorian rather than the second. And that's not bad. It just feels like maybe we should be getting a different show at this point. It feels like this season of The Mandalorian is filling in a gap for something else yet to come. And they didn't really have a huge amount of story to fill that gap, so they threw in some random adventures. That's what it feels like. And some of those random adventures I really enjoyed. There's an episode where they go to this planet which is formerly an Imperial planet, now New Republic, and there's stuff with droids going on there. If you've seen this season, you know what I'm on about. There are some big name cameos in that episode. A lot of people do not like that episode. I totally understand why. Personally, I had a lot of fun with it. But I do think it's episodes like that which do set this season apart in that it's slightly goofy and cheesy at times, but still fun at its core. And what this season of The Mandalorian is often trying to do, it seems, is to test things out, to experiment with Star Wars. What can Star Wars be? Or what can Star Wars be? Or what can Star Wars, yeah. You get the point. They're trying to experiment around a bit, and some of the experimentation doesn't always work. But I don't think any of it's a flat-out failure either. The big thing about this season, or one of the big things, is the title, The Mandalorian. So for the past two seasons, Din Djarin has been the titular Mandalorian. He's the main character. That changes this season, in that he definitely starts off as the main character, but as the season progresses, he's very much a side character supporting Bo-Katan on her quest. It's Bo-Katan's quest to resurrect Mandalore and to bring the Mandalorians together. And she's doing that with Mando, Din Djarin's help. And producer, writer and director Rick Famuyiwa has stated at Star Wars Celebration that yes, the title The Mandalorian no longer refers to Din Djarin, at least not solely him. Bo-Katan this season is the titular Mandalorian. She is the main character, and it's her arc that we see this season. Now, the problem with that is, while I like Katie Sackhoff and I like Bo-Katan as a character, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, I prefer them to be the side character. I don't feel like I like them enough to have them be the lead of their own show. So there are moments where I'm just kind of lost interest a bit because they're not focusing on the thing that I want to focus on. Not that the thing that I'm focusing on is bad. At its core, if you remove the Star Wars side of it, what is this show? Well, it's an action-adventure show. Each episode seems to have like a build-up to a big action set piece, and the action scenes this season are really good yet again. There's some great special effects, some great CGI, some great props and prosthetics and so on and so forth. There's a battle later in the season, getting into slight spoilers, featuring two groups on jetpacks, and it's really cool, and you can see that they put a lot of budget, care and attention into it. So it doesn't always look great on TV budget, but it's there and it's cool in idea and concept. But yeah, as an action show, the show does succeed. There's not a huge amount of creativity this season, I don't think, in that regard. The jetpack stuff, like I mentioned, is probably the highlight in terms of action this season, as well as another scene in that back 2 episodes. But yeah, it's still very fun as an action adventure sci-fi story. And one of the things that this show struggles with is the look of it. This show is primarily filmed on the volume being the huge like LED wall circular set where they fill in the walls with imagery, and then they have the set itself have props to flesh it out a bit more. The problem is that the volume is good at certain things. It's good at doing things that it cannot do for real, but it doesn't always look real. It doesn't always look believable or convincing, particularly when it comes to light. And there are scenes and locations this season that simply don't look very good. It's got a whole artificial look to this show as a whole. This is especially evident coming from Andor Season 1 last year, which had very real locations because it went to certain real places and built real sets and locations in there. So to go from that, which looks very real, very believable, very good, high quality, to go to this, which looks a little schlocky in comparison, to be honest, for the most part, it's disappointing. There's an artificialness to everything going on in this show. And sometimes it looks great, I've got to be honest, it really does. The stuff in the deserts, for example, in the earlier episodes this season looked really good. But the stuff on Coruscant, yes, we go to Coruscant this season, looks really quite bad. Especially when you're seeing people walking around on street level and you've got like the buildings in the distance. It just doesn't look convincing. And speaking of that episode of Coruscant, that episode is very distracting in itself. A very interesting and thought-provoking episode, a very cool episode of Star Wars, one that is very reminiscent to Andor. It's the sort of storytelling you would get in Andor. But it does feel like they're trying to rip off Andor in a certain regard this time around. And it doesn't always feel like it fits into this season. About halfway through the season, you just get a huge episode, probably the longest episode of the season, that goes away from Mandalore, goes away from the Mandalorians and focuses on the Imperials or the ex-Imperials living on Coruscant. Again, really cool, really interesting. I want that story. But in the middle of this season, it feels like it disrupts the pacing and momentum of this season. It feels like it's been thrown in there because they want to tell this story, they have to tell this story, they just got nowhere else to put it. And it's disappointing that it's smack bang in the middle of this season because it does disrupt everything, it seems. And there's not a lot of callbacks to it as the season progresses either. So it sets things up, it explores some things, and then we don't really get a follow-up. Not a full one, anyway. And that's leading into one of the big problems of this season, is that we know what's being built up to. We know what the future of Star Wars is. There's a TV show called Ahsoka coming out this year. We know there's going to be some big characters, big moments in there. We know Dave Filoni's making a movie that's going to wrap all of this story up. And now it feels like Mandalorian is sort of becoming a little pointless at this point. It does feel like this is the setup for things to come. It feels like it's teasing those characters and those events without actually giving us the goods, because they can't, because the goods are in those other shows and movies. So it does feel a little weak in that regard, in that it's constantly teasing, never revealing. Let's talk about Grogu, Baby Yoda, the child, whatever you want to call him. He's called Grogu though. He's a great character, isn't he? Everyone loves him. He's cute, he's fun, he's funny, there's a certain energy about him, and it's amazing that he's a puppet. This season he tries to push things further. He now knows the Force because of the events of the Book of Boba Fett, and, well, he likes to show that off at times. They keep pushing what the possibilities of Grogu can be. So this season we got him doing flips and jumps and running around the place, and at one point he gets his own new way of transport, let's say, without avoiding spoilers. And it does feel like they're running out of ideas. It does feel like some of these cute, funny moments are becoming a little repetitive. How many times is it funny to see a puppet do a front flip, or to run around, or to look sad, or to make like baby noises? It's like, yeah, it works, it's still good, it's still fun, but I feel like we need to start seeing new stuff from them. It feels like they have run the course with some of the stuff they can do with Grogu in his current form. So hopefully we're going to start to see a bit more progression in terms of him as a character. I don't think we will, because I think that will start to actually change the character and people won't like that, but who knows, we might, and at a certain point we're probably going to have to. Let's talk about the ending of the show though. So I've talked about how it does a lot of teasing, no revealing, and that's the big disappointment I think with the last two episodes, in that the last two episodes do feel like classic Star Wars. They do end in a big, dramatic, cool, fun, interesting way, but it also kind of goes out on a whimper, in that it's like, yeah, of course that happened, yeah, of course you did that, but where's the surprise? Where's the shock? Where's the twist? Obviously, coming off The Mandalorian Season 2, we had the big Luke Skywalker reveal. That was huge. I didn't expect that again, but I kind of wanted and expected something, and we didn't get it. Instead, we got Mando and Grogu settling down on Navarro. It felt almost like a series finale rather than a season finale. And who knows, it might be. Well, it's not, because we actually know that Mandalorian Season 4 is in development. It's already been written. So we know we're getting more of this, but it does feel like this is the closing chapter of their story for now. We're obviously getting Ahsoka next, we're then getting Andor. It's probably going to be 2 years before we get the next season of Mandalorian, and who knows when that Dave Filoni film is going to come out. So it's an interesting way to end the show. It does feel like some sort of finale to what's happening right now, and I'm curious to know what's going to happen in the next season, because the next season will come off the events of Ahsoka, you would assume. So yeah, I feel like now's the point where we're building to this movie, we're building to the end point now. And that's cool, that's interesting. I just wish there was something else that kept us like me, made us a bit more excited and anticipated for it. Instead of saying, right, that's the end of Mandalorian, now you got Ahsoka coming. I wanted something that really just went boom, that's the end. And it didn't quite do that. But I did like The Rise of Skywalker and the sequel trilogy. Some people really like those films, some people really don't. I'm a little in the middle there. I like The Force Awakens. I think The Last Jedi has some ups and downs, some big ups, some big downs. And The Rise of Skywalker I think is fun for what it is, but has a lot of big problems. This season of The Mandalorian, and The Mandalorian in a whole, feels like they're trying to address a lot of the problems and issues that people had with the sequel trilogy. They're doing a really good job at teasing out the return of Palpatine, the development of Snoke. There's actually just flat out mentions of the projects that were being worked on there. There's mentions of Thrawn, there's mentions of all these other things that are going on in the world of Star Wars that are building up to the sequel trilogy and setting the stage for the First Order and, of course, the Resistance. It's very cool, very fun, very interesting. I really like what they're doing there. I feel like they need to stop teasing though and just get to the point already. Again, this is a case of they're building up to something, but what they're building up to isn't in this show. So that's disappointing. So to get the full story, you're going to have to go to Ahsoka, you're going to have to go to the next movie, you're going to have to go to The Bad Batch even, where that seems like it's also building into this. So that's the way Star Wars is at right now. You're never going to get the full story unless you watch all of it, unless you read the books, unless you do this or that, and so on and so forth. The books as well. Ray Sloan, where's Ray Sloan? There's mentions of Thrawn because he's in the TV shows and stuff, he's a major character. But the books that we already got really make Ray Sloan the main Imperial. So why is she not getting mentioned? Why is she not around anymore? At this exact point, she should be the big bad Imperial, according to the new canonical books, not Thrawn. So I hope we get that mentioned at some point. But yeah, a lot of teasing, a lot of pointing at things, a lot of addressing some of the issues. All of it's really good, really cool. I just really want them to be more than teasers at this point, because it's been a while now. And that's my review of The Mandalorian Season 3. It's okay overall. A little disappointing, especially compared to the first two seasons. There are some really good episodes, there are some really cool moments. Nothing in this season I thought was bad, nothing in this season I thought was awful. It just doesn't reach the heights that it could have. It's just doing certain things, playing it safe almost. It's an action-adventure sci-fi show set in the Star Wars universe, and in that regard it succeeds. But it does feel like this is the show that's setting things up and building things up to the other shows, rather than trying to be its own thing. it does lack focus at times. But overall, okay. Let me know in the comments and feedback down below what you thought of The Mandalorian Season 3, and of course subscribe to my channel and follow me on Twitter and Instagram at @the_Grant Burton for all of my updates and thoughts and opinions as I get them. Until next time though, thanks for watching.